If you can hear me okay, can you put a yes in the chat? I just plugged the mic in again and rebooted the software. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. All right, finally got it working. Sorry for that little snafu. We're going to start now. And what I'm going to be going over is a really different and unique investing style. And we're going to be looking at small cap biotech stocks that we believe are poised to really skyrocket. And I'm going to show you quite a few right off of Thinkorswim, 2 this week that have really gone up immensely, and that I was able to predict by looking at all the clinical data and what's called the PDUFA date, which is released by the FDA. But I'm going to get into all of that in the webinar itself. Now, I just want to quickly go over this disclaimer that all signals and trading opportunities provided are for educational and demonstration purposes only. And everyone understands that you should never risk more than you can afford to lose. Now, I just wanted to introduce you quickly to the Right Line Trading team. You can see it's getting larger. A lot of new people are coming on, and it's really augmenting our core staff, which has been around for really over a decade. Rory, Sergio, Mark, myself, Craig Emery, David Kushner. Now, just a little bit about myself. I graduated from an Ivy League university. I went to the University of Pennsylvania for 8 years. I majored in applied mathematics. When I graduated, I was inducted into the Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society for graduating in the top 2% of my class. I graduated summa cum laude with honors, and it was always my goal to go into teaching and research. I applied to quite a few universities, and I wound up becoming a full-time professor at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia, which is where I trained at Penn. While at Jefferson, I published 15 peer-reviewed articles in top-tier journals. I taught an enormous number of undergraduate and graduate students. I've always had the mindset of being a scientist, a teacher, and an academician. I've been an invited speaker internationally in many countries and an invited speaker domestically in many cities. Now, I just want to say right now that if you have any questions, just feel free to type them in to the chat. I'm going to answer all the questions at the end. So, don't hesitate to type them if you have any questions. Now, if you're looking for the holy grail of options trading, I truly believe this is close as you're ever going to get. When you see headers and emails that come in that say breakthrough strategy produces 140% gain in one trade, $1,500 into 15,000 in a few weeks, and game-changing option strategies, code breakers, hacks, broke the 8-digit code. Please look upon this as all background noise. The strategy that I employ is based on an enormous amount of background study and mathematical modeling, and it's going to provide you with up to a 91% win rate. It just so happened today we got a 355% winner that we locked in today, and I'm going to show that to you. Now, there's one formula that is really unknown to 95% of investors that has the potential to deliver enormous success, and it works in any market environment. It doesn't make any difference whether the NASDAQ, Dow, and E-mini are rocketing up like they are today, or they are just awash in red ink, and really there's blood in the street. All of these small biotech stocks move on individual catalysts and pretty much ignore the extrinsic market environment that they're moving in. They have small floats, and they're pushed in a specific direction by the announcement of a major event. And it only takes a small number of buyers flooding in to push these stocks up an enormous amount. Now, they're small cap biotech stocks and they're catalyst driven stocks. A catalyst is some major news that comes out from the FDA. That means that some medicine in their pipeline that has been approved. Now, the FDA always pre-announces these dates, so we know when they're going to come out. And if we have a 90% or greater certainty that the FDA is going to approve the medicine, we're going to be in that stock way before that date is actually announced. So we are in ahead of all the other institutional traders. We've let them buy into it as it moves closer to that catalyst date and carry us up. And then the catalyst date is going to drive the stock up really high. Now, everybody understands that technical analysis has value, but it also has problems. I mean, you can see here, this happens to be Albemarle, which is trading way down. Since I took this snapshot, I can move this off the right edge. But Albemarle here is trading about 140. You can see has support here, breaks support, goes right through. Areas of support and resistance break. I mean, as I said, technical analysis has value, but that value is limited. In a market that is just totally choppy and doesn't have any direction, there's simply no way that you can trade a market like this. So we do use technical analysis for overbought, oversold signals. But in general, what we do is we take our cue from the FDA and other big other big institutional investors. Now, a catalyst event with a 91% or greater win rate is what we're looking to get into. And I'm going to show you a few of them up front before I go through the process that we use in order to find them. Now, it's the process that we use that really makes this such a tough go. I mean, there's really nobody else out there willing to tackle this. Now, this company is BioXcel, ticker's BTAI. Now, what they did was, what came up before the FDA was a thin film formulation of dexmedetomidine for the treatment of agitation in patients with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. At the time, there was no topical medication to treat it. The oral medications had a lot of side effects. And now the stock was crushed when irregularities were discovered in data filed by one of the principal investigators. We were not in the stock at the time. And the major issue involved serious adverse events in which the FDA was not notified on a timely basis of the occurrence. I really like the medicine. I work with 4 professors at the University of Miami School of Medicine. We stayed aside from this medicine. And then it turned out that all the events in which the FDA was not notified on a timely basis occurred in patients receiving placebo, not the active drug. So we jumped into the medication all the way to swing low at 588. That was where the FDA announced that there was irregularities in the medicine. They were concerned that adverse events had not been appropriately provided to them. The stock had a huge gap down. Then we learned that the adverse events were only seen in the placebo arm of the study, not in the medicine arm. We rolled into the stock. Up it went. The stock moved up 102%. The option gained 331%. This was a $5.88 position that moved to up over 11 bucks. Now, Verrica Pharmaceuticals is a terrific company. It marketed a great medicine. The FDA told us when they were going to give us the thumbs up or the thumbs down on the medication. It's called the PDUFA date, and I'm going to tell you it's, that's short for PDUFA date, and I'm going to give you where that acronym comes from. It's really not important. All we need to know is what the date is. The medicine was called YCANTH, and it's a proprietary drug that was developed for the treatment of molluscum contagiosum. And that is a viral infection that causes regular warts, but it also causes anogenital warts. Now, despite what you see on TV, there really is no effective medication to treat this. You can burn them off, you can freeze them off, but it does not eradicate the virus that causes it, and a huge percentage of them simply grow back. This was the first medicine that actually had antiviral properties and caused regression of the anogenital warts. Now, the reason it's so important is that anogenital warts are the precursors for potential carcinoma. They cause squamous cell carcinoma, especially in the genital area and in the perianal area. So it's not just that the anogenital warts causes discomfort. They can potentially lead to the development of invasive squamous cell carcinoma. Now, the medicine was approved. I'm telling you, this was a no-brainer. We got into the trade. We only made 109% on the option. I would have thought we would have made more, but the PDUFA, or the FDA announcement of their approval of the medicine, sent this skyrocketing. Now, this was a gimme trade, and once in a while we're going to get gimme trades. And when we get gimme trades, we get maybe 3, 4, or 5 a year. And when we get them, I'm going to let you know, those are positions I might heavyweight in terms of asset allocation. Now, Emergent Biosciences has the patent on Narcan. Up to that point, Narcan was only available by prescription. And I'm sure everybody who's listening to me, and we have a nice audience, knows that Narcan, that the United States is awash in fentanyl. And Narcan is the medication to reverse any opioid central nervous system depression. It also reverses a lot of peripheral problems with Narcan. I mean, Narcan causes pulmonary edema. It causes cardiovascular collapse. And Narcan reverses all that. The problem is it's carried by EMTs, but a lot of times by the time they arrive on the scene, it's too late, especially in the case where these youngsters take medication that has been laced with it, and they don't even know that they're taking the fentanyl, and they overdose and they die. Well, they applied to the FDA for over-the-counter approval. Now, Narcan, we already know, is safe and effective. So was there any reason why the FDA was going to give this a thumbs down? I mean, we gave this a 99% chance of approval, except for some administrative snafu or paperwork hassle. This was going to get approved. It did, and we made 173% on the option. Because this is going to increase the bottom line of Emergent Biosciences a huge amount. And we now know that Narcan's available in free vending machines in San Francisco and Los Angeles. You just press a lever and it drops out 3 amps of Narcan. You can go into pharmacies and you can buy it over the counter. You do not need a prescription in any state in the country. So obviously the use of Narcan is going to really get greater, and it's really required. Now it's injectable, but you also get syringes, and they give you those too. So basically you get the whole package. This was a gimme trade and a 173% handout. Now, Coherus Biosciences, CHRS, I'm going to show you the stock. We still have this ticker, and it makes what's called a Udenyca auto-injector. Now, inside the auto-injector is medication that increases your white blood cell count. And what it is it is the first automated injector that continually senses the amount of white blood cells that are circulating in your blood. Now, a lot of patients get a lot of medicines which drop their white blood cell count. Chemotherapy, some of the medicines, some of the anti-inflammatory medicines for Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, lupus, a lot of the collagen vascular diseases will suppress the output of white blood cells. Now, you need an absolute neutrophil count of 500 white blood cells per cubic millimeter of blood. And obviously that is a mechanical derivation that this auto-injector does on a continual basis. So it's implanted in your skin. A needle is implanted in your arm or in your abdomen. And every time your white blood cell count falls below 500, it squirts you some of the medication to push your white blood cell count higher. Now, the incidence of infections, of problems with chemotherapy in these patients was markedly reduced. Now, this wasn't a gimme trade because this is a complex medication and mechanical device, but it was approved and the stock gave us a 104% winner. Now, this thing just shot up really rapidly. Now, after it went up, it then fell and retraced, and that happens sometimes very commonly because the momentum boys come in, they rush in, they push the price higher than it should really go. Remember, the approval, it still takes the medicine 3 to 4 months to roll out, and then it still takes another 3 to 4 months to educate doctors about how it works. So it's going to take about 6 to 8 months before it starts increasing revenue to the bottom line of the company. So the stock tends to retrace, and then I repurchased Coherus on other catalysts that I'm going to talk about. Now, this is Lantheus Holdings. This is just an unbelievably good stock. We still have it too, and we've already cashed out half. We bought it at 70, it went to 102. We cashed out 50% of our stock. Now, most of the times we're going to buy an option, but on Lantheus, the options chain was just inert. There was no open interest, there was no volume, so we had to buy the stock. It went from 70 to 102 really quickly. We dumped half of it, we're still holding half. Now, what Lantheus does, it makes a cardiac and cardiovascular imaging platform that is really a 2.0 platform. I mean, it is very, very advanced. And what it does is it images actually the lumen of all your coronary arteries. So you can actually get a three-dimensional view of how open your coronary arteries are. There is nobody anymore that gets cardiac angiography, where they actually inject dye down into your carotid artery, either to image the brain, which if you saw the original Exorcist movie, they do angiography on that girl who's has her head rotating around, but they also do it for the heart. But they don't have to do it anymore because of Lantheus. Lantheus also tells you about the contractility of your heart and the quality of the muscle, whether it's actually injecting a quantity of blood for each time that it contracts that is sufficient to perfuse the entire body. 70% of the volume of blood that's in the left ventricle should be injected every time the heart beats. The Lantheus cardiovascular platform can determine that. It can determine pulmonary capillary wedge pressure through a non-invasive means. Before then, the only way you could have that done was to be in the intensive care unit and have very, very invasive catheters inserted, again, down into your carotid artery. So this has really revolutionized the way we look at our cardiovascular system. Now, what we're waiting for is the European Union to approve this platform. And I'm telling you, you can get cobwebs on your mouse at the pace that the European Union's equivalent of the FDA moves. So I just took it out. We bought it 70, we sold it at 100, we made 42%. That's a $30 move on a $70 purchase. I don't have it all the way up to 100, but believe me, it went up that far. Now it's retraced back into the upper 60s. It's right about at the purchase price, and I'm just waiting for its approval by the European Union. We've already booked nice profit, and it's a mid-cap stock, and the Russell mid-cap index has gotten hammered, but Lantheus has been pretty resilient. Now, in general, this is not a buy and hold service. What we want to do is we want to buy the option. We want to wait for the catalyst event to be announced by the FDA. We want to book our profit and get out. But in certain cases, we are required to buy the stock because the option simply doesn't have any turnover. And you cannot buy an illiquid option position. All it does is create misery for you. You get in at a miserable price, you get out at a miserable price. Market makers cannot determine the midpoint of the option. And one day you're up 500, one day you're down 500 with no change in the price of the underlying stock. And that's because they're just playing with the midpoint. So we don't mess with those kind of options positions. But that's our strategy. We want to get in, we want the catalyst to trigger, and then we want to walk away. Now, the last one I'm going to show you is SC Pharmaceuticals, SCPH. Now, I don't know if many of you have heard of furosemide. Its brand name is called Lasix. Now, Lasix is the most potent diuretic that we have in medicine. Now, diuretics are medicines that many people with high blood pressure take. And what they do is they force the kidneys to make more urine. And what they do is they decrease total body volume. And they're given in patients who have high blood pressure or have severe cardiomyopathy and really are on the borderline of having congestive heart failure. Now, Lasix is the most potent diuretic that there is. It's called a loop diuretic. It inhibits sodium from being reabsorbed into the body, and you have to replenish sodium when you take Lasix and potassium. And you create an enormous amount of urine. Now, what has been required up till SC Pharmaceuticals came out with this auto injector was that patients would take sort of standard diuretics like hydrochlorothiazide, aldactone. There really aren't any great potent oral medications that push you to make a large amount of urine. So it was only a matter of time before these patients, which really have borderline heart failure, go into blatant heart failure, wind up in the ICU, where they're diuresed slowly. Then they're given Lasix intravenously. A lot of them are on a ventilator, and they're multiply invaded by catheters. Well, SC Pharma invented this auto injector, and the auto injector was able to sense total body volume. And every time total body volume crossed a threshold that was set into the auto trader, into the auto injector, a certain amount of Lasix was injected into your blood. Again, this was an implantable device. And what the phase 2 trials showed, and this is what we follow, was that the patients who have borderline heart failure had much less time in the hospital. Their quality of life was markedly improved, and the length of their life was markedly extended. So this is, again, I wouldn't call this a gimme, but anytime that the government via Medicare can save an enormous amount of money on these patients by keeping them out of the ICU and out of the hospital, and Lasix itself, furosemide, is super cheap, they're going to go after the medicine. And Lasix has been around, I think, for close to 40 or 50 years. So we know it was not a question of whether the furosemide was effective or whether it has side effects. It was a question of whether the auto injector device was effective. It was. And SC Pharma, we made up. Look how it went up when the FDA came out with their approval. Now this, we purchased it, and this is just institutional money coming in and picking up on this after we do. And they're buying into that PDUFA date called the PDUFA date. And we know when that date is. Everybody knows. The FDA announces all their PDUFA dates in the first week of every month, 184% on the option. So let me just go quickly through the drug approval process so that I just want to give you a core understanding of what we do and why it's really such a laborious task, and why I really do it with a team of 3 additional professors who really are luminaries in their field in neurology, immunology, and cardiovascular medicine. So initially, a company's going to come up with a compound, and they're being engineered by AI right now. I mean, they're companies. One is called I Bought It, and it's actually everyone in the service owns it. I'll tell you what it is. And what this company does is, through AI, it creates compounds to certain specifications. It's really a smart. It's Exscientia PLC, ticker's EXAI. It's trading at 566. We bought it around $6. Now, so the company comes up with a compound. At this point, they can do anything they want with it. They want to inject it into rats or mice. They can even inject it into primates if they want. They can inject it into dogs. It has no regulatory scrutiny by the FDA because it is not going to be used in humans. It's in preclinical development. And based on their preclinical data, now, some of these compounds are not tested in any living organism. Some of them are just tested in a petri dish, but most of them are. They're usually rat and mice studies. Occasionally, as I said, they're dog and primate studies, but they come up with preclinical data and they apply to the FDA for an IND. Now, one of the compounds that we hold, or one of the companies that we hold, got a new IND, and man, did it fly on that news. I'm going to show it to you today how far it's up. So the FDA approved the IND, and now it comes under regulatory scrutiny. Now, an early clinical 1 phase trial is done on humans because it's now under the scrutiny of the FDA, and these are normally volunteers. I mean, if you're homeless and you're healthy, it's a great way to make money. You have to have a healthy liver, healthy kidneys. Yeah, you can't be malnourished, but if you're in good shape, you don't take crack, you don't take fentanyl, you can make $2,500 to $3,000 by signing up for one of these studies. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you the medication and determine its safety and the potential optimal dosing interval for the medicine. They're not going to look at efficacy. So the early clinical phase 1 trials are done in maybe 50 to 100 patients. It's a cheap study. It's not done in a large amount of people. And from that, they derive pharmacokinetic data to provide information in the phase 2 study as to how often to dose the medication and at what dose, and to determine that at least it's safe or appears to be safe in a small study. If it does, the FDA will give clearance to move on to a clinical phase 2 trial. Now, about 75% of all medicines that go to phase 1 will be approved for phase 2. Now, phase 2 is our catalyst. Excuse me. Phase 2 is our catalyst event. This is when we're going to be looking not only at pharmacokinetic profiles or dosing intervals and its safety, but we're going to be looking at efficacy. Now, phase 2 trials are done in a significantly large number of patients so that they can provide the FDA with statistically relevant data. Now, if the FDA approves a phase 2 trial, you're normally going to see the underlying stock skyrocket, because in most cases, that phase 2 trial will allow the medicine to be prescribed in the pharmacy and dispensed to any of us if we happen to need it. Now, some medicines to go on to a phase 3, a lot don't require a phase 3. And a phase 3 is a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. And the reason a lot of these medicines don't need it is they have orphan drug status. And that means that they are the only medicine out there to treat the specific disease that they are targeted for. So there is no way to do a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. And then you can even do a phase 4 study where you pit the medicine head-to-head with another medicine that's potentially of equal or better effectiveness, and you're going to see which is the better of the two. But we only really pay close attention to our phase 2s. And if all of this works out, the FDA is going to give a thumbs up to it, and it's going to get approved, and the stock is going to fly, and ultimately the medicine is going to get prescribed. Now, about 1 in 100 compounds that are discovered in the laboratory ultimately wind up actually becoming clinically available to patients. Now, everybody always complains over the price of these medicines, and really it's not the topic of discussion here. But let me tell you, these companies burn hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital on medicines that just never see the light of day. So it's a very, very expensive process. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of a particular medicine, and I'm going to show you that we're still in this company. This is Phathom. The ticker's PHAT. Now, they developed a medicine. It's Vinazepam, and it's actually a triple combination medicine. It's Vinazepam, it's clarithromycin and amoxicillin, and it's given to treat Helicobacter induced gastric ulcers. It's not really widely known, and I'm telling you, this is more of a biology seminar than it is about investing. But let me tell you, if you know how to configure the right option, when you know when the trade's going to trigger, it can be a very, very lucrative process. Now, Helicobacter pylori is a gram-negative anaerobic organism. It grows in an environment that has very little oxygen, and it induces 80% of gastric ulcers and 20% of duodenal ulcers. And the treatment that was currently available until this medicine became available was just amoxicillin, which killed it, but then 3 months later, it recurred. Now, there's a predisposition to get it in indigent populations. So right away, you've got an FDA bias or political pressure to push this medicine through because it selectively damages the people in the lower socioeconomic strata. So what the company did was they grew the organism, and this is really Helicobacter pylori in a petri dish. I do not know what agar it's growing on. It's selective agar. And then they drop antibiotic discs or combination medicine discs, and they look at the zone of clearing, and they see the disc that has the biggest zone, and that's going to be the medicine that has the greatest promise in killing the organism. So then they were going to apply to the FDA, as I said, for an IND. And the IND allows them to proceed with research on humans. It's done from in vitro studies or in vivo animal studies. Now the phase 1 study in humans, as I said, it's not the effectiveness of the medicine is not looked at. All we're looking at here is the dosing interval and the safety, not looking at the healing of the ulcer. That is not relevant in a phase 1 trial. Phase 1 trials are pretty quick, and they're done in a small cohort of patients. Now, here's a critical component to what we do. We want the medicine to get fast track status. Now, that's going to pop the stock. Now, we're not going to get a heads up on it, but we're going to go right in on that fast track. Because when a stock is fast tracked, that means that the FDA is taking it under its wing. It's going to look at all the studies that are done as they're formulated by the company. They're going to look for design flaws, for statistical analysis that they don't particularly like. They're going to give the company constant feedback. So fast track status is an enormous benefit. This medicine received fast track status based on just its phase 1 data, that it was safe, and they arrived at an optimal dosing schedule. Then we went to phase 2, and phase 2 needed several hundred patients. It had fast track status, and remember, it's already got orphan drug status. There is no medicine that is really effective in eradicating this organism and causing gastric or duodenal ulcer healing over a long-term basis. So now they're going to actually look at the efficacy of the medicine. Now, this is an expensive study because it requires an upper endoscopy and it requires a biopsy to determine for sure that the organism has been eradicated and that that ulcer is healing. And the interim results were awesome. It was very effective for treating peptic ulcer disease. And based on the phase 2 data, the medicine was approved. And what I do along with these professors is we examine the data in these fast track medicines and we look at the phase 2 information. And their top line data from their phase 2 studies were absolutely stellar. We jumped into the medication. Now, obviously, this is not going to do there's no phase 3 to do here because it has orphan drug. There's nothing to compare it with. It doesn't need a placebo-controlled study, and there's no phase 4. So we're not going to move to we're not looking at phase 3, and we are not going to go to phase 4, which is a double-blind placebo-controlled study. So I've read a lot of phase 4 trials. They take hundreds of millions of dollars, and they require a couple of years to complete. We're not going to ever get involved in a phase 4 trial because the medicine and the company will have already popped on phase 2, on the phase 2 results. Now, that fast track designation is really key. They'll submit their paperwork to the FDA. The FDA responds within 60 days. Denials can be appealed. To qualify for fast track status, a drug has to treat a debilitating or life-threatening condition. In most cases, it's AIDS-related, cancer, diabetes, epilepsy, some neurological disorder like amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, some major debilitating neurological disease, or some side effect of diabetes, like peripheral vascular disease, macular degeneration in the eye, obviously cancer with multiple metastasis, and HIV can cause multi-organ failure. So all of these medicines are really looked on very favorably for fast track designation. Benefits I already outlined. The FDA is going to take you under your wing and sort of walk you through the process. Very few fast track medicines get denied. So we're going to look for fast track medicines that are treating orphan drug that have orphan drug status. They're treating something in which there is currently no effective therapy. Now, between myself and the professors I work with, we're going to give it a COS, or chance of success. And that could range all the way from 92% to 99%. And we'll take the trade. If it's less than 92%, we won't take it. Obviously, we want to take most trades that are upwards of 97% chance of success. We want to optimize our win percentage. Now, then the FDA is going to announce what's called a PDUFA decision. Now, the PDUFA during the first week, in fact, in the first couple of days of each month, sends out a list of all the medicines and their PDUFA dates for the month. So it's not something that's done behind anyone's back. Everyone knows about it. And that's when Myself and the professors I work with go to work. Now, PDUFA stands for Prescription Drug User Free Act. I don't even remember what it stands for. I don't really care. All we know is that the PDUFA date is when Caesar stands up in the Coliseum and gives his thumbs up or thumbs down on the medication. If we get a thumbs up, we're going to make nice money. Thumbs down, we're going to wind up having a problem. Now, some thumbs down are not necessarily death sentences, especially if we own the stock. We can come back and still make money, but they're usually a death sentence if we own an option. We do not want to get a PDUFA denial. Now, a CRL is a letter we never want to see. Now, a CRL is a letter that the company gets when the FDA has given them a thumbs down. And in that letter, they give them all the reasons why they have decided not to support the medication and let it come into the pharmacy and allow patients to be treated with it. They're going to give out all the reasons. And they may be as nebulous and subjective as, we believe we need a little more data to support its approval. Now, that's going to take months more, a lot more money, and if we have the options position, it's going to sink our position. We have the stock, we are still in the ballgame, especially when we got a couple of CRL letters, which actually were really nice and allowed us to make money. But in general, we don't want to ever see a CRL. Now, I'm just going to show you some of our older winners. Here's Novavax. It developed the first RSV vaccine, that's respiratory syncytial virus. Now, RSV, you see it advertised on TV all the time now. I see it every evening. I can't remember on which channel. They've developed a new RSV vaccine, but it selectively targets children between the ages of, say, 2 and 15, and then the elderly. And in those populations, respiratory syncytial virus can cause severe, debilitating, potentially life-threatening pneumonia. So this was a very, very big deal. And this was a 364% options winner with Novavax, 125% move up on the stock. Now, a second generation medicine has been developed. I'm okay with it. It didn't come up on our radar. We didn't take it. And it's probably because it wasn't fast tracked and it wasn't an orphan drug. It didn't get orphan drug status because we've got this RSV vaccine. Now, Regeneron made Eylea. This is the first medicine ever for macular degeneration. This is just senile macular degeneration. And the macula of the eye is the area of the eye that has the most dense rods and cones. It's responsible for our 20/20 vision. And a lot of people, as we age, simply get breakdown of their macula. And Eylea was the first breakthrough that ameliorated this problem. It retarded macular degeneration. Stock bumped 55%. We made 157% on the option. Here's Clovis Oncology. They made Rubraca. This was for ovarian cancer. We made 302%. And you can see that the magnitude and the size of the stock move doesn't always proportionally equate with the size of the move of the underlying stock, because a lot of that has to do with implied volatility, the time to options expiration, how much extrinsic and intrinsic value is left in the position. This was a 302% winner. Rubraca really is a terrific medication for treating advanced ovarian cancer and distant metastasis. I mean, it's sort of a salvage medication, but it really does improve and quality of life and prolong it, although it's not a cure. And then United Therapeutics, this is Unituxin. Now I'm going to show you a medicine that we're looking at that is going to that is going to replace this medication. Now, Unituxin is for brain cancer in kids. Now, it happens to be the same type of cancer, a glioma, that killed John McCain. But it's really most commonly seen in children. The medication that is out there now is very cytotoxic. Most kids get radiation therapy to the brain, which is severely toxic. Unituxin was the first really effective medication for it. Again, it's only palliative. It doesn't cure anything. It bumped United Therapeutics, which was already a very, very big company. It bumped the stock 57%. And I'm going to show you a new one that's being developed for brain cancer that we're riding up for really nice profit. We haven't even gotten the PDUFA date yet, and we're already up about 30% on the stock, which we had to buy. So I'm just going to show you Amylyx. Now, I just want to show you what you see when you get the newsletter. I'm just not going to throw you out information and tell you to buy something. I want you to understand why this is an important medication. Now, Amylyx made a medicine called AMX0035. It now has a name. I don't really know what the name is, but it was the first medicine to treat amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which I think we all know is Lou Gehrig's disease. At the time, it's 100% fatal. And the fact of the matter is it's still 100% fatal. This is only palliative. It is not curative. And what happens in this illness, for still an unknown reason, is that you get mitochondrial stress at the cellular level in muscle. And that mitochondrial stress causes the cell to tire. It doesn't have enough ATP to generate energy. And what happens ultimately is you die of respiratory failure because your diaphragms, which are muscles that move your lungs in and out and up and down, fail. But AMX0035, which is a proprietary combination of these two compounds, sodium phenylbutyrate and a medicine I'm not even going to try to pronounce, blocked a lot of mitochondrial stress, ameliorated a lot of symptoms. Patients had a better quality of life and a much longer life. The medicine was approved, and I didn't make a very, very sophisticated chart, but here's the PDUFA date decision, and boom, we made 147% on the position. Now, the fold is Amicus, and what they did, and we're getting to the end, I just want to give you an idea of what you're going to see in the newsletter. And I'm going to really go down and hone down on it. You don't have to even read it, but I think you should. And Pompe's disease is a disease of glycogen storage. Now, everything that we take in is ultimately broken down to glucose. Now, some of that glucose is ultimately metabolized, and in the liver, we get fatty acids, and they are stored as fat. But the basic building block of energy in the body is glucose. And glucose can be stored as glycogen polymers. And if you have Pompe's disease, these glycogen polymers, which are normal to get because we need them in times, let's say you go to the gym and you ride a life cycle and you ride it for an hour. Well, you're going to run out of glucose in the blood. So you start calling on glucose in lysozymes, and they are released and they allow you to continue with the normal blood sugar. Now, one of the things that Ozempic does is it kind of pushes this glucose away and makes you burn fatty acids. But let's not go to another medicine. So kids, it's an inborn error of metabolism, and they're missing a GAA enzyme. Now, this medicine replaced it. And It allowed them to then go back into these storage lysosomes, break up these vacuoles, which are stored in muscle. Now, if you Google Pompey's disease, you're going to see kids that are horribly disfigured. Normally by age 16 or 17, these children expire. But this really had a tremendous impact on the disease. Again, it's only ameliorative. It's not curative. But these children, it's an illness of young adults because it's inherited at birth. And you get a much better quality of life and a longer quality of life. It was approved. And there's the move up. I didn't even put a percentage up here. This is a big move up and a very precipitous move up. So it's going to increase the implied volatility of the stock. I don't have the percentage at my fingertips, but you can see what a PDUFA date approval does. Now here's our 2022 performance. We had 20 trades, 18 winners and 2 losers. This is the stock performance, not the options performance. Wanted to put in the stock so you can see how far the stock moved. Now here's our performance to date in our portfolio. We have 29 trades, 26 winners and 3 losers. And we have a couple of really big trades, and I still haven't put up our 350%er. You can see when there's stock, I notate that we're trading the stock. Now I just wanted to bring, I'm going to bring one. At the time that I made this slide, this medicine hadn't been approved, but it was approved. Now Bausch is, I'm sure everybody has heard of it if I tell you about Bausch and Lomb contact lenses. Well, actually they make an array of ocular products and also skincare products. And they made the first-in-class triple combination of benzoyl peroxide, clindamycin phosphate, and adapalene for the treatment of cystic acne, which was remarkably good. I mean, I put a 99% chance of success on this between myself and my colleagues. It got approved. Now, Bausch Healthcare moved up dramatically into the PDUFA date. When the PDUFA date actually came out, the stock tanked because people bought into it, and then so they bought they bought the rumor and they sold the news. But we set targets, we got some of our positions out, and the others hit our stop. So some of these can be quixotic positions, but I just wanted you to see one that I had called. Now I'm going to show you a couple more right off of Thinkorswim. If I can get that over here. Here's one. Let me put up the couple that, now Coherus was the company that made that Udenyca auto injector to raise white blood cell, raise the white blood cell count in patients who become neutropenic. Well, ultimately, there wound up being problems and the auto injector was recalled. Now we were out of the stock and the stock tanked. So now it's coming back up for approval again. We're back in the stock and you can see what a nice move it's making. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that Udenyca is going to be reaccepted when the small bugs in their auto injector are worked out. The other one is Dawn, D-A-W-N. Now these are all positions we're holding right now. I'm holding them. Some of them I'm holding a bucket of. Now Dawn is a medicine that is the new medicine to replace the medicine to treat gliomas. Now, this is a landmark medicine. Now, this is when the FDA approved their IND. This is where they said, you can now take this medication, bring it to market. They immediately gave it fast track status. We were in this medicine before this date occurred. We got the gap and we're getting the run. Now we had to buy the stock because I'm not going to mislead you, simply because the company is called Dawn and the ticker is Dawn, and simply because the options chain is inert. There's no open interest, there's no volume, so we had to buy the stock. It's a cheap stock. All you need to do is buy 100 shares. What's important is your return on investment. Now we're going to go back to Phathom, which is PHAT. Now this one's a little crazier, but Phathom is the one that is marketing the medicine that got approved for the treatment of Helicobacter pylori induced ulcers. Well, now it's looking for 2 more approvals. Now it fell, and I can't remember why it did. We were holding it and we took this loss, but then the FDA came in, and no, actually the FDA didn't do anything. People just recovered their senses and pushed the stock back up. And then it got approved for the treatment of erosive esophagitis. Now it's got 2 more PDUFA dates that are pending. And if I can write them down, I will. The 2 PDUFA dates, and these are going to really push this stock high. Let me just go to I forget it. One of them is for the treatment of non-erosive esophagitis, or simply gastroesophageal reflux. Now it's already approved in the European Union, and it makes $850 million a year in Europe. The fact that this medicine is going to get approved is a gimme. Now, the second PDUFA date that it is still looking at, that's non-erosive esophagitis. It was approved for erosive esophagitis. And there's a third indication, and you know what? I cannot remember it. But there's a third one, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I think we're going to wind up with a stock that's trading right through the top of this chart. We just have to hold it for a while. That's all. So we couldn't buy the option here. We have to buy the stock. We're still trading above our entry price, and we're looking at really nice potential profit. And if you come aboard, this is still a stock you can purchase, because you've got 2 PDUFA dates coming up, and the likelihood of their getting approval is exceedingly high. So I wanted to show you 3 open positions: Phathom, Dawn, and there was one more. Let me look at my trader, and I'll tell you what it is, because I have all these in my portfolio. I'll tell you the third one right now. Coherus today is up 8%. Phathom is up 11%. Dawn is up 6%. Those were the 3. Coherus, they are flying today. And, we have a few other positions. One's up 11% on Arcutis, and that's really about everything. So the portfolio is just really been exceedingly profitable. I'm gonna move this over. So one winner should pay for a year of this service. If you simply asset allocate, a reasonable amount of money to the position. But it doesn't make any difference. It's totally up to you. You want to asset allocate a small amount, that's fine. All that matters is your ROI or return on investment. Nothing more than that. So I have a couple of biotech services, what I've been looking for. Mark, after a 45% increase in my account in the first 2 months, I'm a member for life. Thanks again, Mark. Your professional guidance has been amazing. I answer a lot of email questions. I gave Mark's service a try. I have to say that he knows his stuff when it comes to biotech companies. His first 3 trades were over 100% gains. Thank you, you're a truly gifted trader. This is not so much trading. It's really working with the professors. It is formatting an optimal trade, but most of this is based on fundamental analysis, not technical. And the fact that we know that we're going to get FDA approval and it's going to fly. I'm thankful I came up with Mark in 2 short months. I've grown my account 205%. I told all of my friends it's well worth the annual cost. So here's the offer. Now, if you're one of the first 20, you're going to get 3 PDFs that I wrote. One is a tiny company behind a $4 trillion medical revolution. The other is Apple's chip maker poised to dominate healthcare. And then we're going to do bi-weekly small biotech update sessions. The 2 PDFs really are poised looking at telemedicine, where there are chips that are being created by certain companies that can not only read your sugar, your blood sugar, but also your potassium, your chloride, your bicarbonate, your BUN and creatinine, look at your SGOT, SGPT, ALK-Phos, look at basically do a complete chem profile in CBC, but just by putting your finger on a sensor, looking at your blood pressure and pulse. What Apple wants to do is corner the world market in telemedicine. And they're using this small company's chips to do it. It's still a ways off. But just to give you a little heads up, which people don't ever talk about, but if you bought Amazon at $5 a share, you had to wait 14 years for Amazon to start appreciating in price. So all these people that say, well, I got into Amazon at $2.59. Okay, maybe you did, but you had to sit with it for a decade and a half and just let it bleed money, because for 10 years, it did nothing but turn in negative earnings until it started to gain traction. So if you want to be in at the beginning of a revolution, you have to get in early. And I'll just tell you another one, just because you showed up, and that is the companies that are looking at LSD derivatives. That is going to be an unbelievable market. I'm sitting in 3 of them. LSD derivatives are going to dominate treating anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and simply anxiety disorder. They're going to replace benzodiazepines, and they do not have any psychedelic properties. You take them and, that component is gone. These medicines are just languishing, but I don't know when they're going to hit. Lately, they've been starting to all move up in tandem really nicely. When that first medicine's approved, and there's a lot of them in phase 2 trials, that sector is going to go ballistic. So if you're interested in that, you can talk to me if you come aboard. But I'm telling you, that's a very lucrative market niche that very few traders know about. So it's normally $9.95 per year. Now, we're offering a very special on a month. Now, it's usually $95 a month, but you can come aboard for $25. Now, when you check out, If you want to come aboard for a year, it's normally $14.95. You have to put in save $500 when you check out, and that $14.95 will be reduced to $9.95. If you want, I don't know why it says save 70, but if you want to go from $95 to $25 for 1 month, just put in save 90. Oh, that makes sense. And you'll only pay $25 to get the alert newsletter for a month. Now you have 30 days to cancel because it will rebill at $95. Obviously, the yearly won't rebill for a year, but you have plenty of time to make an assessment of whether you believe this is going to make you money. If you want to cancel, you just send an email to info@rightlinetrading.com, or you call this number. And I know that Rory or one of his people in the office will be more than happy to cancel you out. So you're risking $25, or if you want to come aboard on a very, very inexpensive yearly basis, and we have a lot of traders who take the yearly option, you're welcome to do that. Now let me answer any questions that are here. Hang on 1 second. Let me pull it over, and I will. All right, let me just scroll up to the top here. Okay. Okay, Charles. So your question's already been answered. Alan's, your question's already been answered. Brock has been in, and he's been answering questions for me. Stephen, thank you for coming aboard. William, thank you for coming aboard. Maria, thank you for coming aboard. Jalen, thank you for coming aboard. I really appreciate it. So really, that's it. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you there. You know, our flagship newsletter goes out on how much yearly and monthly? The yearly is discounted to $9.95. The monthly is only $25 if you put the save $70 at checkout. Okay, I don't want to. Okay, Patel, I don't want to mispronounce your first name. Just put in the save $70 at checkout, and that 95 will drop to 25. Now it'll renew at 95 because I don't want anyone to be surprised, but you got 30 days before the rebill. So, and all you've got to do is call the company, the number's right here. If you don't want to stay aboard, my gut feeling is you will. A flagship newsletter goes out every Sunday night. We have multiple updates throughout the week. And every time a new trade crosses my desk, I meet with the professors and we come up with a really great catalyst. I'm going to send it out to you. So you know you're going to stay in the loop, and we're going to do the biotech update sessions. Okay. So just put in that coupon code. Okay. So listen, everyone, have a really, really wonderful weekend. I hope you're aboard and we can trade together on Monday on this service. It's been very, very helpful and very lucrative to really all the traders who have come aboard. No one, I don't think anyone regrets it. First off, it's $25, and then if you let it renew, it will renew at $95 a month. But that's totally up to you, Patel. You've got 30 days to determine whether you want it to renew. It will automatically renew, so I want to be clear. You have to call in and simply, or just send in an email that says, you know, this is Patel, your email address is going to be on the email, and just say, I wish to cancel the biotech service, and we will take you right out. We don't want anybody aboard who doesn't want to be aboard. So believe me, we don't want to drag you in. We want you to stay in because you love the service. It's the only reason we want you to stay in. But it's $25 to test the water with your toe and see what you think in 1 month. And if I can get you 2 beautiful winners in 1 month, it's well worth the 25 bucks. So everyone, again, have a really, really wonderful weekend. I wish you all the best, and stay healthy and enjoy yourself. And again, I thank you for your time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.